Welcome back to the W Sports Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Tubby. This episode, we are going to talk a little bit of fantasy football, start 'em and sit 'em, and some MLB talk with the final week of the regular season upon us. So let's just hop right in with some fantasy football talk, and we're going to start with the sit-ems. Quarterback. Now, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I'm pretty sure I've used this one for the last couple weeks, and that's going to be Anthony Richardson versus Pittsburgh. I mean, Anthony Richardson has looked abysmal the last couple of weeks against the Packers, against the Bears, and now he's facing a much better defense, probably than both of those in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't see the IPL right now starting Anthony Richardson unless that is your only option. Then I feel sorry for you. If there's a chance, maybe you can go out there and pick up a guy like a Sam Darnold or someone for the next couple of weeks until maybe Anthony Richardson figures something out. But right now, I am not starting Anthony Richardson if I do not have to, because Anthony Richardson has looked bad. Yeah, the rushing number potential is there, the big play potential is there, but the kid is completing somewhere. Last time I checked, it was under 50% of his passes. Yeah, he's had some problems with his teammates dropping the ball, but he has done a very bad job at ball placement over the last couple of weeks. I'll throw another additional quarterback in there since I don't want to look like all I'm doing is just repeating myself the last couple of weeks. And that's Aaron Rodgers versus the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos has a solid defense, especially in the secondary. Patrick Surtain, once again, like I said last week, is the best corner in the NFL. So you have a wide receiver going against him. You do not want to play him. Look at what happened to Mike Evans last week. Look at any of the wide receivers that he has played against this year. They all averaging like, I think maybe 2 or 3 catches around 30, 35 yards. That's not a lot of production. And if your best wide receiver is Garrett Wilson being covered, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a hard time. But there's potential. Maybe, if Garrett Wilson is covered, maybe Tyler Conklin is a play and pick up Tyler Conklin after last week. Running back. And this guy has started off super hot. Had a little rough week last week, but I think part of that was to Justin Herbert getting hurt. It's J.K. Dobbins versus one of the most dominant run defenses in the NFL, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. Especially if Justin Herbert is not able to go and Easton Stick or Taylor Heineke is the starter. They are going to want to run the ball no matter what, but this is going to make it even more harder for them because Kansas City will be keen in on that run offense even more than they probably would have before then. Wide receivers, I've already mentioned his quarterback. I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, do not start him against not just the Broncos, but against Patrick Surtain. Yes, like I said, Patrick Surtain is the best corner in the NFL. He is a lockdown corner. Garrett Wilson is going to have a tough week, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to give you another wide receiver, and this one is tough because most people drafted him in the first round, and there's probably maybe some people drafted him with the first pick in the draft. But with the quarterback situation going on in Miami, if I have a way not to play Tyreek Hill against Tennessee, and yes, Tennessee doesn't have the best defense. They've struggled the last couple of weeks, but they do have a solid secondary. I just don't trust what quarterback that Miami is putting out there right now. So if you have other wide receivers, I would potentially play them. Maybe you can find a way to trade Tyreek Hill, take him, maybe someone take him off your hand, get another wide receiver one, maybe a running back one if your running back group isn't great. But this is a tough decision because, like you said, most of you that took Tyreek Hill drafted him early in the first round, and some of you may have taken him number one because Tyreek Hill we thought was quarterback proof, but last week did not prove to be that, and we're going to see if that happens again this week against the Tennessee Titans. And with the question is who's going to start, if it's Tyler Huntley, it doesn't sound like it's going to be Skylar Thompson, or if it's Boyle. We'll see what happens. Now we're going to move on to some stardoms. We're going to go ahead and go in reverse order. Let's start with the wide receiver. And I'm going to talk about a wide receiver that I think that has not got enough love over the last couple of weeks, averaging around 15 points the last 2 weeks, and that is Darnell Mooney. He seems to be really one of the main go-to guys for Kirk Cousins right now. He had 14 and a half fantasy points last week. The week before that, he had 17. This is a guy I think that if you are struggling, if you have maybe a guy like Garrett Wilson on your team and you're trying to figure out if you should play him against Patrick Surtain, maybe this is a guy you look at that you can go out there on most fantasy, waiver wires, go out there, pick him up, maybe throw him in because he seems to be Kirk Cousins' safety blanket and has played really well the last couple of weeks against two pretty solid defenses. Running back, I initially wanted to do Devin Singletary, but by the time this episode comes out, that game will already be played on Thursday night. So, granted, I want to say Devin Singletary. Can't say that. I'm going to go with Zach Moss versus the Panthers. I think they'll get out early. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins will have a solid game, and they're going to run the running backs. They're going to ride the running backs, hopefully to their first win. If they lose to the Panthers, then it's probably atomic bombs dropping in Cincinnati, and people are going to be calling for people's head because this team shouldn't be 0-4 with the talent they have, especially on offense. But I think Zach Moss is going to get a lot of run in this game because they will be up so much. They're going to run the football a lot. And Zach Moss is a really good receiver. I think he had 5 or 6 catches last week that really boosted his fantasy value, even in the loss Monday night to the Commanders. I think this is a sneaky play because of the amount of carries and touches he will get in this game. Quarterback, I found the quarterback to be a little tough this week, but I'm going to go with the kid. A young kid, and the first couple of games were rough. He played really good last week, besides a couple of the turnovers. And that's going to be Caleb Williams versus the Rams. The Rams defense has given up a lot of fantasy points this year so far to fantasy quarterbacks. Give me Caleb Williams, and I'm going to say he has a rushing touchdown this week, which is a big deal in fantasy football. It's an extra couple points than a passing touchdown. I think he finds his legs a little bit more this week and uses them because that offensive line is absolutely garbage. So he's going to throw the ball a lot. Hopefully they don't make him throw it 52 times again this week. But I think we will see him finally utilize his legs like I think a lot of people thought he would, like he did in college. So I think this week we finally see him utilize his legs and get in the end zone on the ground. There's your fantasy start and sit-ems. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments or message me on IG and I'll get back to you when I can. But until then, let's go ahead and move on to some MLB. The final weekend of the MLB regular season is here, and we have some interesting races still upon us in both the National League and American League wild card races. You've got Kansas City, Detroit, Seattle, and Minnesota all within 2.5 games of each other going into this final week. Minnesota has looked pretty rough since the All-Star break. Seattle, they had the lead for the most part of the season in the AL West, and they have floundered offensive-wise. They cannot find it. Detroit's one of the hottest teams in baseball, up there with the Padres and the Phillies, and surprisingly somehow the Dodgers. But I think this is a 2-horse race. I think it is Kansas City and Detroit's to lose. I think they will be the final 2 wild card spots because we already know that the Orioles have locked up that number 1. I think we'll see Kansas City and Detroit get those final 2 wild card spots, and Minnesota and Seattle will be on the outside looking in. The National League is even closer. I think it's within a game and a half a game with the Mets, Arizona, and Atlanta. Mets have been on fire the second half. Atlanta has really turned things around from what they were. I'm surprised at this point the way things were going when all the injuries happened. They were falling hard and they were able to recover, and pitching has been a big part of that. Chris Sale is the Cy Young Award winner right now in the National League, and honestly, I'm not sure if it's really close at all, but I think they missed the playoffs. As bad as Arizona has played recently, I still think Arizona finds a way to sneak in because I believe they finish out the season against the Rockies. No, never mind. Scratch that. I still think they pull out the win, but I think part of it is going to be because of the Padres. I think that's who they close their season out with. Will not have a chance at the NL West title, and we'll talk about that in a second. and they may rest a few guys to get ready for the playoffs. But I don't know if I can see Atlanta making it just because of everything that is going on with the situation. And then we're not sure if we're going to see the makeup games or not, depending on if it's necessary. These next two games from Atlanta and the Mets have been rained out. So we'll see if we get that doubleheader on Monday or not. If it's necessary, if it's not necessary, we won't see it. But I still think it's the Mets and Arizona in the final two wildcard spots for the National League. Now let's talk about the NL West race right now. It's a 3-game lead for the Dodgers as of Thursday afternoon. That they are up after so far splitting the first 2 games of the series. This next game will be vital for both teams. Dodgers finished out the season with the Rockies. Vice versa, the Padres finished out the season with the Diamondbacks, but the Diamondbacks have not played great. So we'll see if the Dodgers can win this game. I think pretty much seal up the NL West, and we might see the Padres maybe rest a couple guys. Tatis looked like he may have tweaked something last night. He stayed in the game, but he made a catch at the wall, and he kind of landed a little awkward. So we'll see what happens there. But real quick, when we're talking baseball, there's something I want to talk about, and that's about what happened with Rowdy Tellez. The fact that you cut him, you waive him as the Pirates, waive him 4 bats shy of getting a bonus of $250,000 is absolute bush league. Ben Sherrington wants to say it had nothing to do with salary. It absolutely had everything to do with salary because that's who you guys are. You spent $86 million on your team salary this year, which is one of the worst in baseball, and you are afraid to give a guy 4 more at bats to get his $250,000 bonus when he's been one of your most consistent players all season on a pretty rough offense, and you're going to do him dirty like that because you want to call up a young guy for the final couple games of the season. Yeah, right. That's not the excuse. You didn't want to pay him the money, and you took the bush league way out. And now I think if I'm any free agent and you're offering me and there's some incentive in there, I ain't taking it because I know right now with the way Ben Sherrington did that, we're out of the playoffs and I'm not just a few at bat shy and he can cut me just like that, that's more than likely what he's going to do to save a few bucks. I think is absolutely terrible. And if there was a team, if they could just pick him up and just throw him in there for 4 at bats, but honestly, it's sad that that's what happened to him because, like I said, he's been one of their most consistent, and he's such a well-liked player around baseball because he's a team player, not a me player. But the way that they handled that was absolutely just bush league, and shame on Pittsburgh organization for allowing that to happen. But you know what? That was it. That's the episode. But remember, we are doing giveaways starting in October, and the only way to be entered into that is to be subscribed to the W Sports Podcast YouTube channel. So you're going to want to do that. That way you can stay up to date and you can be entered into those giveaways, and so you know when we announce it. But there's one thing you got to remember. You've just got to listen. See ya.